Welcome to the Lantern Podcast. I'm Ben McMahon, go-to-market lead at Lantern. On June 2026, GitHub is making one of the biggest changes to Copilot's billing model since the product launched. For organizations running agentic workflows, this isn't just a pricing tweak. It changes how you plan, govern, and prove the value of every dollar you spend on AI-assisted development. To break this down, I've got two guests with me who live and breathe this space. Esteban Garcia is the head of GitHub AI Solutions at Lantern and has been helping organizations navigate agentic development at scale. And Eric Smith is a principal GitHub AI consultant at Lantern with deep experience helping teams build the governance infrastructure they need to operate confidently in the AI native world. Thanks for joining today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So today we're going to cover what's actually changing on June 1 and why agentic workflows are especially exposed, how to measure ROI in a way that holds up to CFO scrutiny, and what you should be doing right now before billing model changes. So let's dig into it. Eric, what's actually changing on June 1 and why did GitHub make this decision?
Yeah, great question. So the big shift is that GitHub is replacing flat rate premium requests with token-based billing. They're calling AI credits. Instead of a fixed number of premium requests per month, you get a pool of credits and each AI action draws from that pool based on the tokens it actually consumed. And the change makes sense when you think about how much Copilot has evolved. 2 years ago, Copilot was mainly autocomplete, basically the same inline workload every time. Today, it's an agentic platform. Copilot spins up coding agents that can potentially run for hours, analyzing entire code bases, generating multi-file pull requests. It's very powerful. Like a 5-minute conversation and a multi-hour autonomous coding sprint just cannot cost the same flat rate in this new agentic paradigm shift. So here's what I think people are missing. Base plan prices aren't changing. Business is still $19 per user per month. Enterprise is $39. But what's changing is how that gets consumed. So standard included amounts are 1,900 credits on business and 3,900 on enterprise, where 1 credit equals 1 cent. And for existing customers, GitHub is actually giving a promotional bump for June through August, where a user will get 3,000 credits on business and 7,000 on enterprise. So you've got a nice cushion while your organization calibrates for this new paradigm shift. What it comes down to is that cost now tracks to actual usage. So the question is whether you have the visibility to manage that, because if you don't before June 1st, you will start feeling it after that date.
Okay, so how do those credits actually get consumed day to day?
Yeah, so first thing is code completions in your local developer environment aren't impacted by token-based billing. So like the inline suggestions, your developers use hundreds of times a day, don't touch credits at all, which is nice. What does draw credits are the agentic features. So this is like the cloud, aka coding agent, using agent mode, plus Copilot Spaces and Spark and third-party coding agents. Selecting premium models like Claude Opus 4.7 or GPT 5.5 cost more per token than the default models like GPT 4.0. And Copilot Code Review uses both credits and GitHub Actions minutes. So those are some of like the changes across the different products within the Copilot platform. Another awesome thing is that credits actually pool across your entire organization, not per user. So lighter users effectively offset the power users. Pooling is an important concept to understand because it changes how you think about allocation across teams. But there is a catch. Under the old model, when you hit your premium request limit, Copilot would fall back to a cheaper model, basically degraded, but still working. That automatic fallback is not automatically set up anymore. Under credits, when your pool is exhausted, the behavior depends on how your admins have configured the pool. If they've allowed additional usage, work continues at published per credit rates. So that's like real incremental spend on top of your subscription. If that hasn't been configured, then usage is blocked until the next billing cycle. So either way, there's no more like silent degradation. That's why the governance conversation matters so much now, because you need to know what your org is consuming and have those admin policies configured before June 1st. because the old safety net just isn't there anymore.
That's a great point.
The cost optimization and governance becomes super important, much more so than ever. So that's great.
Yeah.
So how does this change impact teams that are running agentic workflows, Esteban?
Before June 1st, whenever you go to ID, you do a single prompt, and that's one model code, you get charged with one premium request unit cost, right? Now, depending on the models that you're using, you can get some discounted PRU. So it might be 1/3 of PRU, or sometimes you go 2x PRU, but it's pretty much like pretty linear from what you're doing. It doesn't matter whether that one call that you made spun off multiple sub-agent calls, or it's one call, just you get charged for that. And like Eric said, depending on what level you are, whether you're a business or enterprise, you're going to get a certain amount of PRUs, premium request units. So now as we move away from that, now you're going to get charged for the number of tokens that your call is using. And that also goes back to the model that you're picking. You can certainly go and pick the most expensive model that's going to be 20 something times more, or you can go for a cheaper model. So I think that's going to lead people to start hopefully thinking about, depending on the tasks that you're asking the agent to perform, to go and pick something that's going to be maybe more fit for purpose, not necessarily picking the heaviest or the most expensive model, but like ensuring that depending on the task that you're trying to do, you use the right thing. So going back to what Eric was saying, if you have no governance and you have a single really heavy workflow, it can drain your shared pool. So organizations are going to have to put in some guardrails around that, ensuring that they have proper guidance on how to use that request properly.
And can you give a better sense of what an agentic workflow actually costs?
That's based on some of the work that we've done with some agentic SDLC framework that we have here. We've seen that, for example, in some agents or a feature that's touching 5 different components, we roughly use 118 credits. And that's around $1.18, right? If you have multiple issues going through, right? You may have $400 of delivered value by that. So that's really good. But as you start scaling, you might say, well, if you're spending $1,000, now you're getting $40,000 worth of ROI, which is awesome, right? But if you don't have the visibility and you have the control, then you're not gonna necessarily get that ROI all the time. You might have some your pool getting drained very quickly, and now you're not going to be able to get that value. So I think that's a great way to start thinking about more concrete about it.
Yeah, and on this ROI topic, Eric, how are most companies that we're working with measuring AI ROI today, and where does it fall a little short?
This is something we see at almost every client we've had the privilege to work with. Organizations are measuring ROI through 2 channels for AI usage: platform dashboards and developer surveys. Both are genuinely useful, and I don't want to dismiss them. Dashboards give you real metrics around acceptance rates, seat utilization, active users, and surveys add the human perspective, which is super important. Developers estimating maybe time saved, for example. The results get averaged, multiplied by headcount, and a stat like developers report 30% faster completion might be presented to like engineering and business leadership. The problem is what those channels can't answer. If business leaders hear, 30% faster completion, the natural follow-up is on what features? And usually the team can't answer that. There's really 3 gaps. First, activity is not value. A 40% acceptance rate tells you the tool is in usage. It tells you nothing, though, about the dollar return on a specific initiative. Second, aggregation hides variation. A developer who might save 4 hours on a complex feature, it gets averaged with someone who maybe lost 30 minutes chasing a hallucinated suggestion. The average looks fine, but the reality is messy. And third, and this is where it really starts to kind of fall apart, there's no per feature auditability. When someone from finance asks, what was the return on that specific initiative? Really neither dashboards nor surveys can produce a per feature financial transaction with those traceable inputs. So dashboards prove, adoption of AI tooling. That was definitely the first right step. But the next layer is really per feature economics. And we think that's where most organizations haven't built the infrastructure quite yet.
Can you guys explain that one a little bit more then, per feature economics? And obviously, this is a better approach to addressing the ROI challenge.
Yeah, so it's essentially be able to have full traceability from the moment a feature was requested, understanding what it took to get that feature out to production, and including any security findings and things like that, where you're able to say, okay, well, this feature made it here. Show me how it got there. Show me how much did it cost us to get there, which agents, which models did we use, and we're even able to go back and think about it. How could we have tuned it even better so we can either make it cheaper or go faster, right? It kind of depends what we're trying to do. So we end up with almost like a financial ledger per feature, where we're able to say, well, this one change cost us this much. We did the planning for that feature cost this much. The implementation for that feature cost this much. And then overall, this is how much it costs us. Is the ROI for that feature not once we see it in production. So when a CFO asks about these features or what is the value that we're getting, we're able to have some very concrete information for them, not just on oh yeah, we save 40% of the time, but like this is how much this costs, this is how much we could have saved perhaps, or if we're thinking about time for, let's say, for example, it took us 25 minutes to implement a feature, or if we wanted to take 15 minutes, this is how much more it could have cost, right? So now we're having more concrete conversation about that.
And Eric, I know this is something that you stress when you're working with clients is keep those numbers conservative. That has a pretty important logic to it.
Yeah, definitely. So Esteban did a great job describing per feature economics. And that solves like the collection problem, but introduces a new risk. And it's one that, most people don't really necessarily think about until it's too late, which is inflation. So here's the core issue. When an AI system is calculating its own return on investment, it has an obvious incentive problem. The calculation is too generous with assumptions. The numbers look better and better. And for a while, everyone's happy. Like the slide deck is impressive, leadership's excited. But over time, the stakeholders may notice, right? Like the finance team starts to ask questions that the numbers maybe can't hold up to. And once that trust is eroded, it's really hard to get that back. So we built what I call an anti-inflation infrastructure within these agentic frameworks. So really having like hard caps and sanity checks baked into the methodology at the architectural level. So there's 3 rules that are enforced, not suggested. First is no single calculation can claim more than, let's say, like 75% time savings. The ceiling comes from peer-reviewed research. And if the raw numbers exceed that, the system adjusts automatically. Second is risk reduction value is 0 and scans are clean. So for example, we didn't find any vulnerabilities is a process benefit, but it's not a financial event. So you don't get to claim dollars for hypothetical prevention. And then third, the methodology travels with every number. So every rate has basically a research citation and assumption documented. So the key insight is pretty simple. Basically like a defensible $330 beats an impressive $800 that falls apart the first time someone is challenging those assumptions. So the smaller numbers tend to hold up under scrutiny, which is worth more than larger numbers that can't.
And so, Esteban, sorry, when you're looking at these biggest cost traps for running agentic workflows under this new models, what are the things that really catch your attention where you could fall into maybe some cost escalations here if you're not governing properly?
That's a great question, Ben. I think that just like LLMs, costs are non-deterministic. When we start something by default, we might have sub-agents that run or running parallel or retry things. And now all of a sudden you're spending more and more tokens in your operations. Really, it's kind of difficult to use past behavior to be able to predict how the future is going to be. And that's where our framework that tries to bring more the deterministic ways of working to this new agent world helps us with that. By default, a lot of the model routers out there, they typically default to the most expensive option and without constraints, right? So having the right guardrails in place and the right configurations to say, well, for this type of operation, don't use the most expensive model, the cheapest model, just right, or depending on what we're trying to do, we're able to kind of tweak things as needed. Eric actually opened my eyes to this one. I hadn't thought about it too much until he talked to me about it a bit ago. It's the mid-pipeline hold track, right? You assign an issue to an agentic system and the issue is halfway done or 3/4 of the way done. You've already spent the money to get there. And then you decide, you know what, we're going to stop this thing. We're not going to complete it. You're not going to get that money back. You're not going to get those tokens back. And many times it's just better to just complete it. I get some value out of that, right? And just throwing it all away. Finishing on the cheap side just beats failing with something halfway done with nothing to show on the other side.
That's a good point. This question's for both of you. Esteban, we can start with you. What does proactive cost governance look like in practice?
Yeah, good question. So I think that having a framework that allows you to get some estimates before your agents start running, so doing a good enough job to create the right configuration, the right guardrails, to know, okay, what do we think this is going to cost, right? And just leaving out the chance and then finding out at the end. Understanding or putting in a way to progressively degrade your service as the budget gets tight, whether that's throughout the month as the pool starts getting depleted, or you just decide, you know what, we need to just lower our costs. Have a way to do it is going to be really, really important. And ensuring that you have a way to cap things, whether you do it by team, by specific stakeholders, or by different issues. And so having a way to have those decision points to say, okay, who gets to use the more expensive tiers or what the issues get to use, that's also really important to be able to have.
Yeah, and I'd add that the thing you can do today without any custom tooling, GitHub is shipping new admin controls specifically for this transition period. You can set spending budgets at 4 levels. There's the enterprise level, organization level, a cost center level, and individual user level. So those 4 layers give you really granular control. And these are all in the admin console right now. And in early May, which is basically now, GitHub is rolling out a preview build feature. And we definitely encourage you to turn that on. It shows you what your projected costs would look like under the new model before the switch goes live June 1st. And that gives you a month of real data to work with. So definitely don't wait for the first real invoice to find out what your organization is consuming, and use the preview to get ahead of that.
It gives you a good baseline where you're right now covering your spending patterns. Yeah. So Eric, how does having this infrastructure change the conversation at a leadership level?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it answers the 3 questions that consistently stall AI investment decisions. First, where should we expand next? When you have per feature economics, the ledger shows you ROI broken down by a complexity tier, risk level, and the type of work. Low risk features might generate $150 each of ROI, while higher risk ones might return closer to like $900. That variation is the data you need to make targeted expansion decisions, not just kind of deploy it everywhere and hope. A second is the value really holding or eroding? So per feature trend analysis catches quality drift before it shows up in a quarterly review. If average savings are declining over 3 months, something changed. So we want to catch that data early, so it's not a really reactive process. And then third, and this is the one that matters for scaling, is what happens when we go from 20 developers to 200 to 2,000? Pilot teams are usually cherry-picked for best fit, and returns always tend to dilute as you expand. So the ledger gives you a grounded projection from measured data so that leadership sees the diminishing return curve before committing the budget. So this shift is from like a faith-based conversation around, we believe AI is helping, to a data-driven one. So you can hand that ledger to an auditor who wasn't involved in building any of this, and they should be able to trace back every claim around ROI and rerun that formula so the investment case holds.
Esteban, you have some thoughts on this one as well?
In the current version, or as organizations are adopting AI capabilities, you have one group that worries about governance and measurement, and a different group that worries about, delivery. And I think that as we start thinking about it this way, where you have this ledger and you have the ability to see what each feature is costing and what each feature is gaining you, you're able to kind of bring that together into a single workstream where the cost governance and measurement kind of become a byproduct of delivery rather than a separate thing. And also, when you're working with finance, you're no longer defending just like how many people are adopting these tools. You're actually presenting hard evidence of what you're gaining or what you're spending.
So as we close out this podcast, turn this question to both of you as well. We can start with you, Eric. What are 2 or 3 things organizations should do before June 1?
Definitely. Great question. I'd say number 1 is audit your agentic workflows. Know what they consume before the billing model changes, not after. 2 is turn on GitHub's preview bill when it rolls out, really anytime now in early May, and definitely read it. Look at the numbers. And then number 3 is set admin budget controls now at those 4 layers. We have enterprise, organization, cost center, and user level. The organizations that have those 3 things in place before June 1 are definitely going to be proactive and in great shape moving forward. And everyone else is going to be probably reacting to that first bill with surprise. So that would be my advice.
Esteban?
Leverage the information that you're gonna gather by following Eric's advice, and use this time to get some cost estimates before you start executing your pipelines, and start thinking about what that baseline cost is for the features that you're gonna be building. Right, that is the time to do it. And earlier we talked about those hard stops. Like, this is the time to also configure degradation so that you don't have features that are halfway done and then all of a sudden you don't have any agentic capabilities. You gotta wait until next month. So cheaper finished ways to beats ways to help them time.
Last question. What's the single mindset shift organizations really need to make with this change?
I'd say stop treating AI usage as an IT cost line item. The question really isn't what does Copilot cost per seat? It's what does it cost per feature delivered? And what did that feature return? I think that's the shift from like a cost per seat mindset to cost per outcome.
Next one.
Yeah. So prepare by implementing governance within your organization before you start spending. So usage-based billing is going to reward organizations that plan ahead. So let's plan now so that you're ready for June 1st.
So Esteban and Eric, thanks for the great conversation. Do appreciate you taking the time to join today. And if there's one thread that ran through everything we covered today, it's this. The organizations that will come out ahead on June 1 aren't the ones who react to their first surprise invoice. It's the ones who have already built the visibility and governance infrastructure to operate confidently under usage-based billing. So for more on everything we've discussed today, we've put the following resources in the video description below. So we have a link to the GitHub billing documentation, a link to Eric's great deep dive blog post on this topic that's entitled Proving Agentic ROI Without Losing Control of Costs. And to discuss what this transition means for your organization specifically, please reach out to us at lanternstudios.com/contact, and that link's in the description below as well. We'd love to help. So thanks for listening to the Lantern Podcast, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.